So, welcome to our Tax Talk Thursday series. My name is Jake, and I'm excited to be the facilitator for today's session. This series is dedicated to sharing strategies to support organizations providing free tax filing services. Today, we'll be focusing on creating a positive volunteer experience. And if you haven't already, please feel free to mute. So, this session is brought to you by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities Get It Back campaign. The Center is a nonpartisan research and policy institute that pursues federal and state policies designed both to reduce poverty and inequality in equitable and effective ways. The Get It Back campaign is a national effort to connect eligible people to tax benefits. We promote the Earned Income Tax Credit, the Child Tax Credit, free tax preparation, and other tax benefits through working with a network of diverse partners. You can find more resources and information on our website, taxoutreach.org. Today, we're so excited to have three presenters joining us for this session. Today, we are joined by Molly Mulder from New River Community Action. They have been the VITA site coordinator for their organization for over a year. We are also excited to have Leanne Kendrick and Hope Sims from Community Action of South Mississippi join us today. Leanne Kendrick is the Director of Adult and Community Partnerships at Community Action of South Mississippi. In addition to the VITA program, Leanne manages several others, including the LIHEAP and TAN parenting programs, and transportation and meal services for seniors. Prior to joining Community Action of South Mississippi, Leanne worked for the National PTA teaching advocacy to volunteers across the country. Hope Sims has been with the Community Action of South Mississippi for 20 years, being the lead site coordinator for over 15 years and the IT systems administrator for the agency. Hope is a military veteran, loves to watch true crime, and creates small programs to keep their programming skills up. Thank you to these presenters for joining us today. Now, before we get started, I'd like to let everyone know that there will be a Q&A and discussion section after the presentations. So feel free to type questions in the chat or the Q&A box as they arise, and we'll be sure to address them afterwards. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Molly to get us started.
Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Mulder, and I'm the VITA coordinator for New River Community Action. So in our agenda, you'll see that we're covering volunteer recruitment, volunteer orientation and scheduling, volunteer training, and volunteer recognition events. I don't think anyone could really disagree with me whenever I say that volunteers are the heart of the VITA program. We really can't run without them. So when I recruit strong volunteers, I like to get an understanding of my area. So I like to see if there are any colleges around that would maybe be willing to collaborate with us and possibly set up an internship to incentivize younger volunteers. Or I like to reach out and create strong relationships with volunteer organizations. Another program that I don't believe a ton of VITA coordinators have heard about is the CSEP program. The CSEP program stands for the Senior Community Service Employment Program. So if you need a larger volunteer role filled, such as a VITA site coordinator, I would contact your local CSEP organization for a trainee. Our organization has had great successes with CSEP trainees. And at the end of the season, we're also able to put these kinds of trainees in for our in-kind or match at the end of the season. These employees are paid, but they are not paid by the VITA program. We are simply a host for them to get the training that they may need. And now that we have enough volunteers to run our VITA site for the season, I prefer to set up a one-on-one volunteer orientation. This meeting can help coordinators get rid of the intimidation factor that a lot of volunteers have after seeing all the publications and trainings that they may need, Orientations are also a great place to get to know your volunteers. So who is your volunteer and what is their goal for volunteering? Maybe they're a retiree wanting to fill some time, or are they an accountant willing to share their skills to better the health of the community? Possibly, are they a college student looking for experience for their resume for whenever they may graduate? So what is your volunteer's goal and how can we help them achieve this goal? We also take this time to express expectations for client confidentiality and training. We also want our volunteers to have a clear understanding of what the time commitment is. How much time does a volunteer need to train for the VITA program? This is a good time to share your contact information with each other so that we can stay in contact during the tax season. Be that email, text messaging, or phone calls, whatever you choose, it's a great time to share that information if they do not already have that. Another good thing to explain is how involved are you during the tax season? Are we at every site all the time? Are we simply available? Also, I like to explain to these volunteers what site model I'm using. I like to let them know what they're going to see when they walk in on their first day as a VITA volunteer and where they'll be placed. I like to ask open-ended questions, such as what are you the most excited for during your time as a VITA volunteer and why? I like to be sure that I'm actively listening, that I pause and reflect, and I maintain eye contact with them. A volunteer is much more likely to return if they feel listened to and understood. So now that our orientation and volunteer recruitment is over with, we should probably schedule. An amazing tool for this is called Volgistics. Volgistics has an abundance of volunteer management tools. To name only a few, they provide tracking for volunteer skills, background screening, tracking for volunteer and onboarding process, and assistance with volunteer recruitment and volunteer self-scheduling. So your volunteers can actually go through Volgistics and say what days they will be on site with you. In order to give our VITA volunteers the best chance possible for a positive experience, we have to have strong volunteer training. No one wants to show up to a volunteer event not knowing what they're going to be doing. So for this training, I use My True Prosperity. They're a fast-paced online learning environment for VITA volunteers, and this training includes intake and interview and quality review and the advanced IRS certification. They also include some tax law and tax slayer training, and they're very flexible, detailed, and extremely engaging for our volunteers. They do this by providing trainings in 4 3-hour sessions over Zoom. They also provide volunteers with an explanation of resources and links to VITA publications. VITA volunteers can go through and select exactly what days and what times they would like to attend this training. Some other useful training tools that we use are the Tax Slayer Practice Lab and the VITA Tax Scenarios. We do use Lincoln Learn sometimes. However, I cannot endorse My True Prosperity enough whenever it comes to quality training for VITA volunteers. So after all that is over with, and our volunteers have made it through the tax season, we need to start planning for volunteer recognition. I do this by providing this before the season. Now, with our volunteer recognition, we need to understand what is the overall age group and when is a good time for the volunteers to attend. At the end of the tax season, a lot of my volunteers are actually going out on vacation within that month. So I do my best to plan around them and make sure that everyone can attend. And also, please remember that appreciation should always be appropriate for your audience. A good example would be if you would make a recognition event about sharing your interest or sharing your volunteers' interests. Now, I also like to make handmade gifts to show my appreciation gifts. I do this because VITA volunteers devote so much of their time to us. And I would like my volunteers to know that I am just as willing to give them that same time back. Now, I will take this time to share my video and show you a good example of what I use for a handmade gift. And this is pretty easy. So I hope you all can see me. This was a easy volunteer gift, and I'll explain this to you. I don't mind if you steal it, but these are all traced letters. They're just traced letters that I took off the internet, and these are stamps. So this is a handmade letter. And then the back of this is stamps, and this is just a wax seal. These are pretty cheap from Hobby Lobby. I think they're like $5. And it was really a hit with the volunteers that I had this year. So before we all say goodbye and it's the end of the tax season, I like to give a season rundown. So what are the milestones that we were able to make because of the volunteers' devotion? How many people were we able to help? And then I thank them for all their time and I wish them a great rest of the year and let them know that I'm excited to see them next year. And I tell them to contact me if they need any personal references. So thank you guys so much for sitting here and letting me share with you. Here are some of my links and resources. We have VITA training through My True Prosperity, the tax scenarios that I mentioned earlier on. Our publication 5683, Lincoln Learn Taxes, VITA Tax Layer Pro, which has the training portal, the link for Volgistics, and the CSEP program. Thank you guys so much for listening to my presentation, and over here is my contact information if you have any questions.
I'm Leanne Kendrick. I'm the program director for all of our adult services here at Community Action, and I'm joined by Hope Sims. Say hello, Hope. I don't see you on here. So.
Hello, everyone. For the ones that can't see me.
Okay. Our agency has operated a VITA program for over 20 years. I'm not sure the exact year it started. I know it was before Hurricane Katrina, which was in 2005. So it's been a minute. I've only been involved with this agency for 7 years, and I've been with the VITA program all 7 of those years. I will point out Hope and shamelessly give a plug for her. She is our VITA extraordinaire here at Community Action. She has been involved with the program as long as she's been here, I believe, and as she served as the site coordinator for 15 years. We have a coalition, so our agency doesn't just run the program for our participants. We also partner with the Air Force Base in the area and other nonprofits. This allows us to reach all the counties in South Mississippi with the VITA services. Last year we did over 4,000 tax returns in our coalition, and we had 69 volunteers. So that's just to give you an idea of what we've done in the last couple years. Our volunteers come from a broad spectrum of the population. We have retired professionals that we recruit through just talking to people at agencies we work with for other programs. And as people retire and they're looking for stuff to do, we encourage them to come work with us. We spend a lot of time at the chamber meetings, Kiwanis meetings, the Lions Club, and we talk about the VITA program and share how much we bring back into our community by tax returns. We share the awesome opportunity for volunteering, and because it's a short-term volunteer commitment, we really get a lot of people because of that. We also advertise in areas that CPAs are looking for their CEUs. And that's volunteer.gov, volunteer.org. There's several local volunteer websites that we use that people can log in, look for something they're interested in, and then reach out. We also partner very heavily with our VITA program officer, and she helps us recruit for people who are interested in the IRS, interested in doing taxes, and then she sends them on to me and we bring them in. Because we have an office on the military base, we do have the luxury of having a lot of the retired military that are looking for something to do and are eager to give back because they probably received VITA services when they were active duty. And so now they have time and they're willing to do that for us. Keesler Air Force Base, here where we are, is a training base. So students come from all over the country preparing for whatever their field is. And while they're here, we do their taxes. We assist with a lot of other things as a community action agency. So it's just been a really great partnership. We also have our staff to volunteer. As part of federal law, you can't volunteer where you work, right? But the way we're able to do this is we don't do taxes during the day. That is not our business model at all. We're a community action agency. So our clients aren't engaging in what they would actually do at work. So if our staff aren't engaging in what they do at work. So if they decide they want to volunteer, we provide them with an additional 8-hour PTO day for every 20 hours of volunteer time. So it's a good way to add paid time off, right? And give back in your community and learn how to do taxes. And it's fun. We have a really good time. Let's see, we did use a billboard for a couple years on tax season, and that's because we were able to get it really cheap. And it did help, but if you can't get it for free, I wouldn't say it's a great tool, just saying. So volunteer appreciation, Hope, you want to take that?
Volunteer appreciation. So again, my name is Hope Sims. As the site coordinator, we want to always show appreciation for all our volunteers, whether they are employees or people who have come in, retired, or even some working folks that come in right after they get off work, just as we do. So you always want to show your appreciation. We always do make sure all the sites have snacks and water and coffee, whatever, just to make them comfortable, because we know, sitting there doing clients' taxes can be, taxing. So we try to make you as comfortable as possible. At the end of the season, we always try to give a luncheon to basically celebrate what we have done for the season, to hopefully talk to those volunteers, like, are you going to come back? Because, we love to see your faces, and the clients I love to see you. I try my best to write a thank you note to every volunteer. I try to put something there uniquely to them. So it's nothing that one volunteer will hear just saying like, oh, thank you. I don't want my notes to be like that. I like to say something that only you and you know that when I'm writing this, that it's actually talking to you. And she did say 69 volunteers. So just imagine how much writing I'm doing. And during the season, I constantly communicate through email, any updates, schedules, keeping a schedule, because I try to give everyone the opportunity to come when they can. So I really reach out to, make that schedule each month to fit them. So that's the buck of it all of as far as our volunteer appreciation.
And Hope is always so humble, but I think a lot of it is because we do try to have a good time. The VITA grant only really affords a little bit for volunteer appreciation. So we're able to access local funds. that we use to cover that luncheon so that we're not limited to $10 a head. And then we also, like she mentioned, the snacks. We try to make sure there's always something here. I try to find out what the volunteers really like. I bought healthy snacks one time and got in a whole lot of trouble. So we don't do that anymore. We buy sweets and all kinds of fun stuff. So training. Much like Molly was saying, we use Lincoln Learn. I think the tools the IRS provides are outstanding, but they can be overwhelming. So for our brand new volunteers, we try to spend a couple days with them, and we start out with volunteer, just what does it mean to be a volunteer? What kind of commitment are you looking for? We try to figure out how they're going to fit in, if they want to fit in. We go through the code of conduct, all the kind of easy stuff first. And then we have 2 trainers on staff that do hands-on training with all of the volunteers. They come to each office. We have computer labs, so they're actually walked through Lincoln Learn. They are given an opportunity to practice in the practice lab, make mistakes, right? Ask the questions they may have, because we want their comfort level to be really high. We typically start our new volunteers with basic, because we don't want to scare them off the first year. Everybody tends to be a little timid at first. So Hope and I both kind of keep an eye on our volunteers throughout each season, and we let the volunteers know when we think they're ready to graduate to advanced. Sometimes we're dragging them across that finish line, but we usually get them there because they know a lot more than they think they do. But I think because we build such strong relationships with these volunteers, we're able to keep them. I mean, many of the ones that we have been with us since the first year we started doing taxes. So they've been with us over 20 years. And we're very fortunate the way we, have volunteer training over multiple days. People have a time to learn the material before they start practicing the material, and really sleep on it and think about it and work with it before the next day of training, before they start trying to take their test. That allows us to have a higher level of success rate. And so they tend to keep coming throughout the year. We did notice a couple years where we were just using Lincoln Learn, handing them the book and saying, you let us know when you're done. We didn't get a high rate of folks coming back. So we need to really make sure that we're giving them that one-on-one attention, which is really time consuming, but worth it in the end. That is all I have for my slides, but I will just say, I think a lot of it is just sharing how important this program is. I mean, how much we bring back into our community, how much we save our clients. In addition to doing the taxes, we also talk about financial literacy. We do a survey with every client that we're trying to figure out who's had a refund anticipation loan, who needs assistance in other ways, had they received assistance from us before, and how we can direct them into other areas of our agency so we can help them. But I'm happy to take any questions.